I have never been a big fan of translucent magazines for any weapons platform, but especially for the AR-15. I grew up during the era where the Lancer A5 mags first hit the market, and I remember those having a ton of failures when I was a youth when exposed to things like Bugspray. The DEET in Bugspray does break down certain types of polymers, and those old Lancer magazines had issues with them. Fast forward about 3 or 4 years back, and I decided to dunk one of the new purple Lancer magazines in a vat of DEET to see what it would do. Well, come to 2024 and 2025, and now Magpul has released a translucent magazine, so let's see what DEET does to one of these Magpul magazines. Now, this is not meant to be a scientific video. This is really just meant to see what happens when we expose this type of polymer to DEET. The Lancer that I tested back in 2022 got a little bit soft and pliable and discolored a little bit, but the magazine still functioned totally fine. Here, I'm not trying to say, oh, this is a reason not to buy these. I just really want to see what happens here. Now, full disclosure, this is a magazine that I have only lightly used. I loaded it with 30 rounds to verify that it worked, and unfortunately, I don't have any footage of that because it was a nighttime shoot. But this magazine did work in my 11.5 BCM AR. So I'm just going to dunk it in a whole bunch of DEET here. I have two 4-ounce bottles, so 8 ounces, of the 98.11% DEET active ingredient compound here. And then I have most of a 7.5-ounce bottle that is 40% DEET. So I'll try to figure out the math here, but if I can't, so be it. But roughly this should be like a 75% or 80% DEET volume here. I'm going to fill up as much of this drain pan as I can with all of this DEET and see what it does. I'm going to be rolling footage on a second camera here as a time lapse, so if anything happens in real time, you'll be able to see it. Let's get to that. Alrighty, we have switched to GoPro view, so I apologize for the poor quality of the audio here, but we're going to dump in our DEET. We're going to start with our higher content bottles here, which comes out quite viscous, if I do say so myself here. I'm going to go right on top of the magazine here. We filled up about 1/3 of the container here, so our next bottle goes in. Oh my, that's actually quite full. I'm kind of surprised that it filled up as much as it did. And we're going to go in with our last bit here, which has a different color, which is probably the fragrances and whatnot in here. And we are just about filling up the magazine. It's going to be hard to see with this GoPro angle here, but the magazine's actually bubbling as the bug spray fills into the magazine body itself. So right now I have 1140 right here on my watch. So I'm having that kind of marked here, hard to see it, 1140 here. I'm going to let this go for 2.5 hours and see what it does from there. I'll be keeping the lights on inside of my workshop here so y'all can still see things, but we'll leave our bottles here. I'm going to clean up and enjoy the music as we do the time lapse. I am here at about 1 hour and 20 minutes into this being submerged in the DEET. The GoPro shut off because it got too hot during the recording, and the battery itself is quite warm to the touch, so we're going to pull that over here. Looking at the magazine right now, I can't physically see anything that's different. I'm going to take a punch to it, or a pick here, and see if it feels any different. But no, it is, ooh, I just, you can't see it, but this is a milky, milky mixture, and a little bit just spilled here. It looks fine right now. I'm going to get a second punch and see if I can flip the magazine without spilling all of this DEET everywhere. Okay, we didn't spill too much. So, I will let this keep recording. But just full disclosure, this might, the footage might run out, but we're still going for about 3 hours here, so let's see what it does. Alrighty, it's been a little over 3 hours, and unfortunately this GoPro did shut off yet again. These cameras just don't do that great when they start to get hot. I am going to pull this magazine from the vat here, and I am going to let it dry, and we'll come back to it tomorrow to see how it looks. Alrighty, so the GoPro footage got a little bit wonky, but we did a 3-hour dump of the TMAG here into a solution of DEET Bugspray. Let's start with the magazine body and go from there. It looks a little bit hazier, but truthfully, I think part of that's just the lighting, but it doesn't feel any different. Obviously, you can't feel it through the screen, but it doesn't feel squishy or pliable or anything, so yeah, that turned out pretty good. The floor plate also turned out totally fine, no issues there. And that moves on to the magazine spring. Now, obviously, the magazine spring should be fine, it's metal. However, the only damage I have at all on the entire magazine is a little bit here on the follower. That stuff through here, and I'll be rolling in some macro photos here, that is the only bit of damage I have seen from the DEET on the magazine whatsoever. Now, obviously, that's not enough to cause any sort of structural issues, but it's interesting. Now, why did this hold up better in this very, very extreme testing compared to the Lancers that I tested in the past? Now, this is just a theory, but it ties into the polymer and the glass-filled nylon element of these magazines. These TMAGs, at least to me, with what I know about magazines, I think they have a whole lot more glass in the glass-filled nylon blend. They do feel a bit more brittle, and to get that clear, translucent look, you need to have more glass in the nylon fill. That said, the glass is going to be less reactive to the DEET than a more traditional nylon blend would be. From my understanding, the Lancers use more nylon in their glass-filled nylon blend than these TMAGs do, which is why the TMAG fared a little bit better. I could be wrong in that assertion or that assumption, but that is my understanding for it here. Now let's do something a little bit weirder. Now I know what you're thinking. Paul, why? Why are there beans in there? Well, this is what happens when you have free will. You'll find me putting beans in translucent magazines. This is not the first time I've done this, and it probably won't be the last time either. So the TMAG did fine with DEET. It got about half of a can of store-brand pork and beans inside of it. And, you know, it's okay. Do I like translucent magazines? Not really. I think that windowed magazines do the same thing without sacrificing the durability as much. However, it's goofy and fun to do tests like this. Thank you very, very much for watching. AR Bean Teen, AR Bean Teen, AR Bean Teen. Happy Halloween!